Welcome to the Listening Time Podcast. Hey everybody, this is Connor, and you're listening to episode 121 of the Listening Time Podcast. Thank you all for listening. I hope you're all doing great. The topic of today's episode is a really interesting one, and I think that most of you are going to like this one because it's something that most of us, or maybe all of us, are currently dealing with or are at least having to think about a little bit, which is inflation, right? We are experiencing a lot of inflation in many countries around the world, and a lot of places have had a lot of issues because of inflation. Economies have been hurt and people have had a hard time because of inflation in this recent period. And remember that I'm recording this in 2023. So if you're listening to this in a future year, then this might not be as relevant. But during this time that I'm recording this episode, inflation is a hot topic, and many people are talking about this and complaining about it. And so I thought this would be a good topic to discuss in today's episode. So we'll talk about what inflation is, the causes and effects of inflation. We'll talk about some countries that have very high inflation right now and what people do during times of high inflation. So this should be a really interesting episode. I'm excited for it. And before we start, remember that I have my new podcast available now, which is called US Conversations. This is an exclusive podcast. You can sign up for it if you feel ready to listen to conversations at real speed in English. So in this new podcast, I talk to different English teachers from around the United States in different parts of the country, and we have a normal conversation about many different topics, and I provide the transcript for you with the definitions of key words and phrases that we use during the conversation. So I know that a lot of you have been waiting for this type of content from me, and now it's available. So if you'd like that, you can click on the link in the episode description below this episode. That's patreon.com/US Conversations. And of course, you can sign up for my membership if you want my specialized training to help you understand native speakers when they speak fast. The link is also in the description below this episode. And if you like this podcast, please share it with anyone else you know who's learning English, and please give it a 5-star rating and write a review. All right, let's get started. Are your ears ready? You know what time it is. It's listening time. Okay, let's talk about inflation. First of all, what is inflation? People might have different definitions of inflation, and people think about this topic in different ways, but I'll just give an overall definition that most people would be happy with, and that is inflation means that there is an increase in prices and a fall in purchasing power. What does purchasing power mean? This just means that your money buys less stuff. You can't buy as much stuff with the same amount of money that you used to be able to buy. So that's a fall in purchasing power. So that's inflation. And many of us are struggling right now with inflation in our different countries because over the past couple years, we've seen a lot of inflation around the world. So let's talk about some causes of inflation. There are different causes. It's not just one particular thing. There could be certain things that come from the demand side, meaning the consumer who is buying products or services. And there could be causes from the supply side, from the people that are producing these goods and services. Maybe the cost of production has gone up for them and they can't produce as much stuff, or they need to raise prices because of problems with the supply side. So there are a lot of different things that can affect and influence the inflation rate. But let me just talk about maybe the overall idea of what causes inflation. Of course, this isn't necessarily the most detailed explanation, but I think it kind of summarizes everything. So inflation is caused by having more currency units that are chasing goods and services without a greater increase in production of those goods and services. Okay, that might be a little hard for you to understand. Let me explain it. So a currency unit just refers to $1 or €1 or whatever, right? A currency refers to the different money that we use in different countries, right? So the dollar is a currency, the euro is a currency, etc. So when we have more dollars, for example, in circulation, but we don't have the same increase in the production of goods and services, if there isn't an increase, or if there's a decrease, or if there's an increase but not enough of an increase, this will result in higher prices. It will result in inflation.